Roses are red, violets are blue. Maghoma scored 1 and Anis and Toure scored 2. Welcome to this week's edition of the PinkUn.com and Norwich City podcast. Brought to you on Valentine's Day, where Norwich City have secured their place in the 5th round of the FA Cup. A 3-1 victory over West Brom at Carrow Road sends them through to that stage of the competition for the first time in 4 years and continues what has been a very positive run of winning form under Philippe Clement. I'm kind of Southwell. This is Paddy, Davitt. This is the PinkUn.com Norwich City podcast. Paddy, through to the next round. Good stuff.
Yeah, you've thrown me with that Valentine's. Is this classified as a date, given it is the 14th?
Probably does, I know.
That's a sad state of affairs all round. We've got nothing better to do than talk. As happy as we are to do it over the next hour, but yeah, well, there'll be some candlelit dinners maybe with Philippe Clement and his players later on to continue the theme. But yeah, no, it's been a good afternoon again, as it was when we sat here this time last week. And since then, they've gone to Oxford in between and did an absolute demolition job on them. So yeah, the good times are back.
They are indeed. And this one was slightly different in that I think Oxford in midweek was a case of dominance and obviously scoring goals early. This one, there was total control in the first half, but they really had to overcome some adversity in the second. I felt Clement made a good point in the second half, in his post-match, where he said, actually, if you rewind and you'd placed today's game in the middle of October or in the middle of September or November, if it had gone 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, as that Leicester game did, which was the final one of Liam Manning's era, they'd have retreated rather than advanced, you suspect. That shows their growth.
No, I mean, that is absolute nail on the head for me today. And the same last weekend, the Blackburn game, second half, well, all game really, it wasn't overly convincing performance-wise, but I think that day it was 72, 78, 73, 78. Bang, bang, got the job done today. I think it was Kraseni 82 and then Mo Toure 90 plus 3. And again, they fall on the right side of it. And it isn't luck, and that's just 2 games, 2 cycles. You can go into a lot of the body of work now growing around Clement's time in charge, and it is a trend, and it's a positive trend that they go deep, they go long, they can resist, they have different ways to win. They don't have to be full throttle like they were in that first half today for 90 minutes to get the job done. When they're having to weather a little bit of pressure and maybe induced partly, and Clement also said, I'd incline to agree, they had a lot of players in that lineup today who aren't the battle-hardened week in, week out championship performers on this winning run, and maybe the energy and the intensity did drop and did dip, and then West Brom allied to that made a few changes and took a step forward in their mentality, and that combined with a bit of an air of inevitability when they did eventually draw level through Josh Maggio around about the 68th minute. So yeah, at that point, to go back to Clement's thoughts, that probably is a game they don't then step forward again and regain the initiative, be it from introductions from the bench, but also the mentality on the pitch from the players who were left on the pitch. And I guess in microcosm, that is Philippe Clement and his time at Norwich, is that they don't retreat. As he said, midweek, in answer to my question about, well, that 3-0 wasn't a professional job, but you closed out the clean sheet. No, I wanted a 4th goal. I wanted a 5th goal. I've told the players that. We'll be showing the players the clips where they could have got those opportunities. That is everything about his mindset with this football club and this group of players, is that you continue rolling forward. And as evidenced today and Blackburn last Saturday, those players are taking that on board, and it's becoming almost in the DNA now that, they're not having to be reminded about it. They just know now that then they're in that situation at 1-1, not probably in the ascendancy in terms of where the game was playing out, but they still can arrest to that, go back up the other end of the field and get the job done. And as he also has said a few times recently, the test of a good side is you can consistently win games, and that's what they're doing now. So I think it isn't taking a leap of faith to say that this Norwich are a good team, and 8 wins in 10 in all competitions tells you that. So, brilliant at this point now to feel relatively short period of time the impact he's had. But I think for me, it's where do they go now? How high is the ceiling? Not just this season, but beyond under this head coach. Because the evidence he's shown in the first 3 months of his time in charge is that he really could be the one to kind of break this cycle in the last few seasons in the Championship of, yeah, okay, we're aiming for the top 6, but realistically, I mean, there was obviously the interlude with under Wagner, but they got their rudely awakened by Leeds in those playoff games. But if we're honest, I think they almost sort of by default ended up in the top 6 that season off the back of a certain American's goals. But this feels like under this head coach, and obviously we're talking into the future. I'm not talking in the here and now, but that they can realistically, as he said, what's got him here to Carrow Road. He believes this club have a mission to get to the Premier League, and he shares that mission, and he wants to drive it forward. And you have to say, he's putting the building blocks in place, be it the squad overhaul, be it the faith in youth, be it the style of play, the mentality, all those things. And, of course, time will tell in the months and seasons to come. But it's hard not to feel that they're in safe hands, and that what we're seeing now maybe is the initial exploratory part of a tenure that does eventually get Norwich back to the Premier League.
Let's hope so. And I think it comes back, and you mentioned it, 8 wins in 10. I think it's 7 in 8, and the only blemish on that record is Middlesbrough away, which is, as we know, probably the hardest assignment in the Championship now with the quality that they have. And even then, they went toe-to-toe with them. This kind of winning culture that he has created and his staff have created, so impressive. And as you say, so encouraging for the future as well. And particularly on a day where it wasn't the frontline options. It wasn't the troops that are on the front line every week. It was some of those that had come in a little bit cold and having maybe not played a lot of minutes. Mateus Chris-Gorin, Jack Stacey, we could throw in there as well, and numerous others. Paris Maghoma, who it was his first start today, hasn't been on this journey. Sam Field, who hasn't been on this journey for very long as well. The fact that you can interchange, and this point is probably wider, more important in terms of their injuries. The fact you can drop people in and they know the system, they know the structure, they know their role. Liam Gibbs on Tuesday night against Oxford. That speaks to kind of the wider impact that he's had on this squad, and that ability to kind of play consistently, win consistently. It's a hell of a habit to get into.
Yeah, I mean, he's spoken about Field and Toure, and you don't need to talk too much about Mo Toure now, but 2 new players. You look at those games that they've played now in the last week. They don't look like new players. They don't look like players who are very unfamiliar in their surroundings in terms of their teammates. They've been plugged in, and they're playing, and the same on a similar theme with those ones who got the nod today who haven't been in and around it. Chris Gordon, Maghoma, Jack Stacey, absolutely. Harry Darling coming in today. Even Grimshaw now in the last 2 games, and that's a testament to Clement and his philosophy, and he talks a lot about the story and about how he wants players to be invested in the story, whether they're starters, whether they come off the bench, to impact, the common goal. And that is a very clear signal to me that he makes the degree of changes he did today, and there was no disjointed disruption. A sense that the pieces don't really fit in terms of what he's trying to do. It was, that first 45, 50 minutes was probably some of the best stuff I think we've seen. And of course you can badge it as well. It was West Brom, and West Brom made 9 changes as well. So had a lot of young players, I think, in that first half lineup. But nevertheless, I think the fluidity, the understanding, the kind of rhythm that you saw in the front 4 for me, with Chris Gordon up top, not seeing him too much in that role, certainly in the Championship. Maghoma in the 10, Schwartau and Ali Ahmed, and Jacob Wright providing very good support from a deeper position. Those players, they were really the ones who led that performance in the first half. And 1-0 was nowhere near reflective of the margin of dominance. I think at half time, I looked at the stats, it was 72% possession to Norwich, 21 shot. No, it wasn't 21. 14, 21 in total, but 14 shots in one half of football. So you could argue, okay, they needed to be more clinical. Yes, they did. But as a performance, that's for anybody who's not watching, they won't know what's happened there. But We have an inflatable. I'm going to put that down there now.
Okay.
That has now been sacked from the set. Trying to headbutt me, an inflatable canary. It's funny that because I'm going off on a complete tangent now. There was that was a craze, wasn't it? Inflatables. You remember? And that was I remember there used to be was it Grimsby? They used to. I remember they had an FA Cup run one year, and that was the first time I was aware of about 3,000 haddocks getting away from people and inflatable ones. And so the inflatable canary, unfortunately, is blocked as a copybook there, unlike Norwich today. So that means absolutely zero if you're listening to this podcast. But stay with us. But a fantastic demonstration, really, of in adversity. And by that, I mean, I think it was 12 players, and that's not even bringing into play the Sargent situation, but 12 players unavailable on fitness grounds today. We've been here before under previous management. I'm thinking Manning, I'm thinking Torup, and I don't think you would say that they've managed to extract the same levels of performance that Clement is doing right now, given that the issues in terms of player unavailability, and a little bit concerning. I mean, obviously we just come straight up away from the ground and up the hill, and now we're sat here recording. But obviously the manner of Schwartau's second half exit, we will see in the days ahead. But you just hope that isn't more bad news on the fitness front. But hypothetically, if it is, then you'd still feel that Clement would come up with solutions. And he said that from the get-go. I remember him saying, I don't look at injuries as the half-empty kind of glass. It's kind of, that I need to find a solution. I need to look inside the squad, and we need to, move forward. And that is what they clearly are doing in what feels like quite a debilitating, challenging environment with player unavailability. To be without Pelle Matson, for example, in this period, who's probably been under Clement their most consistent midfield performer. Big blow. Now no Maghoma. Now no Jallo for the foreseeable. Probably in times gone by that might have proven too much. To continue results, performances, and the manner of momentum that they clearly have now harnessed. So, all of those points about players coming in, and yet it feels very seamless, very reassuringly familiar. I think that ultimately comes back down to Clement and his coaching staff, and how they have, in relatively short order, did a body of work at Colney, which now produces, irrespective of who's in the lineup, a very similar level of performance.
Yes, and two very different halves, but probably pleasing for different reasons, because that first one, is so dominant. I thought in every aspect they were by far and away the better team in terms of off the ball, on the ball. Their high pressing was really good. The amount of turnovers that they won, the opportunities they created, the positions that they got into, the territory that they dominated. I mean, all of the back four were well ahead of the kind of the centre circle, really, which was so impressive. The sort of dominance out wide in central areas. The only thing missing really was that clinical edge to get themselves further in front. The second half, then, as you say, having to roll with the punches, being able to be on the ropes a little bit, but being comfortable whilst being there. This is one of the big things I think they've got better at under Clement, staying in games, staying competitive in games, even when the kind of ebb and flow has maybe gone away from them ever so slightly. They're able then to find a way back in, to work their way back into a game, to find a gear, to find a way, to fashion an opportunity to win the game, which is ultimately what they did. And I mean, we'll come back to Paris Maghoma a little bit later, but so he scored the first one, obviously, but the second one, in terms of how it came about, Jacob Wright winning a really important interception, and then Anis Ben Slimani teeing up Ben Kruzene for what was a really crisp strike. I mean, we were right behind it, and it was probably the best view I think we would have had in the stadium. And it was one of those shots that when it left his boot, you kind of knew it was heading for that bottom corner.
That's a lovely feeling as well, because you know the keeper's not getting it, and you can see the trajectory that it is going to go inside the post, and then obviously the eruption. And Clement referenced that quite early, actually, in his post-match today, about he felt and he could see a lot of young, maybe first-time supporters, and for them to experience that as well. Obviously, the regular watchers who've been there through the fin, and now far more enjoyable. They're kind of seeing those steps forward in terms of progression. But But I think there would have been a lot inside that stadium today who maybe they were at the Walsall game, but probably not too many times in the league. And you never know. It's all about capturing new generations of fans and younger fans, and it's using them and wanting them to come back. And I think he sensed that was an opportunity today, and they clearly, in the end, as I say, second half, early part of at least, a little bit uncomfortable, but when it mattered, they did find a real clinical intent. And you're talking the second goal, I mean the third goal as well, the juggling that from Slimani.
Dennis Bergkamp-esque, wasn't it?
Dennis Bergkamp, yeah, I could see what the Leicester goal, he scored, Filbert Street, that was, it just wasn't him putting the finishing touch, but just that's almost like something that you could see at the end of a training session at Colney where they're just having a bit of fun. But for him to do it in that environment and have the presence and awareness to basically serve up another, what is it, about the 6-yard box already with Mo Toure at that end of the ground, the Barclay. He seems to like operating around that environment. And again, he's on the move. He knows where he needs to be in the penalty area. And as Clement has said quite a few times now, not specifically about him, but since he came to the club, a striker in this team, fill your boots, because your responsibility is to get in those positions. Because now the template in terms of the attacking final third that Clement is putting in place is going to create a lot of chances, and that was proven in that decisive final phase, as it was 7 days ago. In a game that was again in the balance against Blackburn, 0-0, 70 minutes on the clock. And it was Schwartau that day, wasn't it? Combined with Slimani, who made the difference. And it's great. It's great to feel that. I'm sure it's great for Clement to feel that. But equally, those fans that they turn up now and they know that even if it's not clicking in terms of the performance necessarily, or they're not maintaining maybe what we saw in the first half, there is now a real clinical intent and an efficiency that at any given moment they do have players who can unlock something and can be the difference makers. And again, it's hard. Probably, you don't wish to keep drawing parallels with what went before this earlier in the season, but a lot of the same players in the building still, and I don't think would have. I mean, would you have said Anis Ben Slimani is now a difference maker? You wouldn't have said that, 2, 3, 4 months ago. Even Schwartau, to an extent, who was one of the very few who managed to maintain a consistent level, but he's adding those real impactful moments now. And Jacob Wright, again, I thought today was a bit more the creative linchpin from a deeper line position that we've seen in his better moments this season, even if he's dropped away a little bit in recent games. But it's probably inevitable with the young players still in terms of finding that seam of consistency. But and obviously, to bring in a striker as unproven as Mo Toure, certainly in English football, and for him now to be 3 games into his career on 5 goals is, well, not even in your wildest dreams, if you're Ben Napper, Lee Dunn, Clement, if he was being honest, I'm sure, or even Mo Toure himself would have expected that level of goal output this early in his career. So, just keep riding that wave, really. And that's, I think, more generally where Norwich are now, that there's a belief, there's a momentum. Even in those tougher moments, they know we've got this in our group, that we can find a way through. We revert back to the principles of what Clement wants in terms of structure, and almost there's a comfort in that if we do the things that he's trying to get us to do, almost to become second nature at, then you're going to stay in games. And if you're staying in games that at the top end of the pitch now, there are players who can make the difference. And that's, certainly in the Championship, that's a recipe, I think, for a team who can look a lot higher than where they have been currently.
I think we've got to speak about Mo Toure, haven't we, in a little bit more detail. We obviously haven't recorded a podcast since Oxford, where he went and scored a hat-trick. And today as well. I'm pretty sure, I need to double check this, but I'm pretty sure he has scored with every shot on target he's had for Norwich City so far, which is pretty remarkable. The goal today is really interesting because he kind of takes a similar position to what he did last week, kind of in preparation for that shot going to the far post. But he's so quick to react, and that kind of pace over 5-10 yards to get himself in front of the defender to win it, that sort of desire to get to the ball is really there as well. as you say, 5 goals. I think it's something ridiculous, like a goal every 29 minutes at the moment. He's on the pitch. To have 5 already in 3 games.
Don't build them up.
I actually couldn't help but, when he scored, think about Mateus Crisco, and I'm sure was on the bench thinking, what I would have given today for an opportunity like that, for a ball just to pop up in the 6-yard box like that, and it didn't quite happen. He had a couple of good opportunities in the first half. But yeah, you're right, there is a rawness there, and I think we can all see that. And he's not going to continue to score every shot on target. If he does, then he won't be at Norwich for very long, but you kind of think he won't. And it's kind of some stuff that he's had. I mean, I spoke to him on Tuesday night, which was pretty uneventful. I don't think there was anything major to come out of that chat. But it's been just some week for a young man hoping to make a first impression. And again, like so many of these Norwich players, the positive aspect is there's so much you look at him and feel, it's probably similar to Jovan Maghoma in a sense, that there is there to polish and to grab and to improve on.
Yeah, particularly with, I mean, he has some really exciting attributes in terms of, the pace primarily, but also the finishing ability and that instinct. Yeah, that you do hear that people in the game say we can't really coach that. It's almost an innate thing, and the top attacking players have that ability to why they're in the right positions all the time. Can that be coached? I'm sure there's a nuance that can be delivered, but maybe when you do boil it down, it's why is they look on the face of it very simple slots inside the 6-yard box, but you have to be there, you have to be on the move, you have to get ahead. I mean, the Blackburn goal, his speed of thought and trigger movement is why he is just a fraction ahead of that last Blackburn defender when the ball gets kicked up from the keeper into the area of the pitch where he is inside the 6-yard box. But that's the exciting thing. If he's producing this right now, 5 and 3, that level of goal output, and really, I mean, you break it down, how many probably training sessions has he had with Clement and his coaching staff? Very few. So we're almost dealing in the attributes that convinced Norwich to go and pivot towards him, obviously, when it would appear that the chase for who hit a dead end in January. So I'm not sure that, I mean, I know that Clement said after the Oxford game that they've sort of tried to show him a few clips of the Haalands and the Romelu Lukaku's, but for me, that isn't probably working with him on the training pitch and really getting under the bonnet of what he has and what they can add to what he has. And then that's really exciting. A lot of clearly Norwich's recruitment is about high ceilings and resale value down the track. And, there's those quotes we picked up from the Randers end, his previous club in Denmark, who feel that they're probably
it must be sick
just a 0 or 2 off. Yeah, I know. So when they see that today again, it'll be another head in hands. So that's the nature of it. You could argue Norwich and a certain Greek winger have fallen the wrong side of that as time has played out. But nevertheless, yeah. Well, for me, I mean, he's proving to be a player for the here and now, and I'm not sure, like Maghoma, I'm not sure that probably was necessarily the case. So it's a testament to him, and I liked what Clement said on Friday actually about, he doesn't feel he will need to pull him down from cloud 9 because he's just a very humble guy. He knows with his backstory, which I'm sure most people are aware of now, that he has had to fight and he has had to struggle but to get to where he is in his career. And as a result, I don't get the sense either from what Clement has said or how he's carrying himself now on the pitch that he is going to feel he's there, he's cracked it. I think and that's a good thing. And I don't think for one moment a coach like Clement would allow that anyway. But nevertheless, if you've got that mentality, you've got that raw talent, put them together with a head coach who, clearly can improve players because he has that reputation of doing that in his previous posts. He told the story, didn't he, about Tuchemani, wasn't it, who he had at Monaco. And when he first went in there, he was presented with, I think it was a central defensive midfielder profile and 2 players, and his coaching staff were trying to tell him that this other option was better, and he had a very open mind, and I think he said within 6-12 months they're selling him to Real Madrid for many a million. So I'm not trying to say Mo Toure is on his way to the Bernabeu anytime soon, but just in terms of he's at the right club now, he's under the right head coach, and if he continues to listen and learn, that applies to Maghoma, applies to Oscar Schwartau and all those younger players, Kellen Fisher, Rory McConville. then really that can only be a good thing for them as individuals and their careers, but equally for Norwich as a collective, because it's going to drive up the standards. And as I say, to repeat what we said earlier, this is very much an operation to get this club back to the Premier League, and to do that and to buck the trend and try and bridge that financial divide, it's going to have to be finding raw gems, polishing them, and then get enough of them in the team that you can hopefully get to that point, and then it's a different game then in terms of what you do with your squad and how you improve it. But all of that segment, if Clement was here now, he'd be saying, why are you overplaying what is essentially a very short period of time in a Norwich shirt, and he's right. But if he keeps doing what he's doing on the pitch, then that's inevitable. That's a byproduct of delivering, which is what he has done so far in a Norwich shirt in barely a week.
And of course, with strikers and with goal scorers in football at every level, they get the headlines. They're the ones that get the praise. But actually, it speaks a little bit to a bigger thing for me, that we speak about improvement all over the pitch and all facets of the game. But a striker, you're only ever as good as the service you get, aren't you? In terms of those opportunities, you can only take opportunities if you're given them. And previously, I mean, that I think back to earlier in the season where we did a sort of dive into Josh Sargent. Funny that now. Well, who exactly? And it was his touches in the box were so limited, and the opportunities he was getting was so limited. And of course, there was some poor finishing with that. Now, I don't just say that as revisionism because he's no longer involved. There was, and you can look at his metrics in terms of the slight underperformance that he had compared to other years. But that all came to the sense that if Norwich City got a chance, the value on it was so big because they didn't create many of them. You look at it now, the fact that Toure has scored a hat-trick on Tuesday night against Oxford, that he scored one against Blackburn, that he scored one today. Chris Goran had some really good opportunities today as well where Norwich worked him in, speaks to the improved service that they've got. And we referenced Slimani's kind of resurgent Paris Maghoma, who we're going to come on to later, him today. It feels now that obviously Ahmed and out wide and even midfield, it feels now like there's a better supply line to put these strikers in positions. And that goes back to what Clement has said in terms of if you are a striker in this team, you are going to score goals, which would be probably his point around maybe why focusing on the headline in terms of Toure scoring 5 goals in 3 maybe isn't necessarily the important thing. It's about what's beneath the surface and that ability to create opportunities consistently.
Yeah, 3 of them, as you're talking there, Connor, 3 of those 5 goals are penalty box tap-ins, effectively. And that's only coming from service and quality service and getting down the flat channels, getting in behind. And as a result, that it feels very, very straightforward, but it's that thing about it's only smooth on the surface because there's a lot of work going on underneath. And a lot of structural work, a lot of positional work. And again, that goes back to Colney and a lot of the video analysis work as much as what they're doing on the training pitches in and around, the usual challenges of the championship fixture schedule. But they just look a very well-coached team who understand their roles individually, but also collectively. I go back to Matt Bloomfield, the Oxford manager. He said in his pre-match that was his main takeaway about Norwich. Those players all look like they understand what they're being asked to do. And as a result, the byproduct is, you get these very similar performances now, stacking up where, there's a control, there's an understanding of how they're trying to progress the ball, even if the personnel in and around it are changing and shifting and evolving, some out of necessity in terms of injury and unavailability. But the common thread is that it's a Norwich team who I think now, maybe in contrast to later in the season, you turn up, irrespective of the opponent, Middlesbrough away or Oxford away, very different ends of the championship table, and you know what you're probably going to get from a Clement side out in and out of possession. And what that is I'm going to use the word bandwidth because that was associated with the predecessor. But in terms of the range of performance, it's not this wild 8 out of 10 to 3 out of 10 or whatever. There's a consistency now within which they have the ability to slip a gear and create those moments for Toure, primarily in the current phase. But prior to that, obviously Maghoma and 1 or 2 others who were chipping in. So, and Clement has always stressed as well, and he did so again on Friday, it can't just be about Maghoma. It can't just be about Chris Gordon or now Mo Toure. It needs to be others who are able to chip in. And that's, again, maybe to segue to Maghoma and then Anis Ben Slimani and Ali Ahmed in recent weeks, that others are now contributing to make sure there isn't that over-reliance on one guy at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely, which is good to see. Let's end the first segment, Paddy, because today, and I think we've seen it a lot over the years in terms of these early rounds of the Cup, particularly when you get a tie that maybe isn't the most attractive and it's a team in your league, and those are the ones often where you can see a dip in numbers around sales because they're not the most glamorous, and then it comes down to pricing and getting that right. And I think you have to give credit to Norwich for the way they've priced both the third round against Walsall and today, kids for £1. It was certainly the first time in the early rounds of the Cup for a while. I can remember those upper tiers. I think there was Chelsea a while back where it did, but in respect to a tie that isn't like that, and you're not welcoming a juggernaut or someone from the top end of the Premier League or even a lower down where there's that intrigue and mystery there, to have a sellout today and have 25,000 people in the ground speaks a little bit about the buzz and the excitement and the energy that feels like it is back and around Norwich. I mean, even when I'm sort of out walking my dog and I see people, it's, isn't it so much better? And there's smiles on faces, and it just everything feels lighter. I guess that probably speaks to the amount of people and bums on seats they had today, of people wanting to watch this team, whether it's Cup, whether it's Championship. And again, we kind of spoke about the winning culture. If you're Philippe Clement, if you're a player stepping out there today, I mean, that must make you feel 10 feet tall, really, to know that support is there. With, of course, today the extra, and Clement referenced this as well, of young. We both had young people there today who are taking either their first or their second game. That element to it is all really positive, and I think speaks about how, from a off-pitch kind of mood sense, things have got better. And naturally, of course, that comes with winning games, but there's that excitement back now, which is nice to see, and that energy back in the fan base that maybe has been missing, not just for the start of this season, to be fair, but maybe there's been a little bit of lethargy over recent years. And of course, they have to sustain that, but it feels like, as you said earlier, it's now at the start of building up to something again.
Well, in response to that yesterday, he said, he does, full well when he says, I don't get out a lot from the training ground. He definitely doesn't, the amount of hours that man clocks up. But on the occasion he has, and people have come up to him, we've got our club back. I think that was the phrase he used, and that was music to his ears. But he said that gives him more hunger and more desire to try and build on these very encouraging first steps, but be under no illusions. And he's been the first to acknowledge it, and did after the Oxford game. This isn't the time to get too excited, certainly in his role, or thinking that they've cracked something and that it's going to be freewheeling from here, because that's not the nature of the Championship or English football generally. So I think he's under no illusions that, particularly, as I say, even though it feels he's navigating a path through the injuries, you do worry that over the next period that will kick in and will have a regressive impact. It's very hard to keep going. When your squad is down to the the very bare minimum in terms of a match day environment. So, but I think, retreating slightly, that point about it does feel that, and 25,000 in the ground, a good proportion of those not your regular goers, that does speak far better than anything we could sort of opine about, that there are a growing number of Norwich supporting people who like what they're seeing, like this guy, like the impact he's had already, and want more of it, and want to be there, and want to be part of that process and that journey. And
he feels, sorry to jump in, he feels as a figure, first head coach they've had for a while that has managed to unify a fan base. If you think about Dean Smith, who supporters never really took to him for reasons that we've discussed lots of times. David Wagner always felt that it was kind of this wrestling match between results and performances and style of play. Torup was quite divisive in terms of his style of play, and you get into the, well, do you want to play out or do you not, and do you want loads of possession or do you not, and that can be quite obstructive from different areas of the fan base. Obviously, Liam Manning, less said about him, the better, really. He kind of feels like, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone. Obviously, again, it's winning games, but then David Wagner won a lot of games and got Norwich into the top six, and there still wasn't that much happiness around him. So I don't think it is all about winning games. His presence, his leadership has sort of spoken to people and to supporters of Norwich City.
Yeah, I mean, that comes down to, the style of play as well. I mean, it's about winning games, yes, but the style of play. It's a very enjoyable style of play. It's not for me. It's not the pure philosophical chin stroking of maybe the Torop era, and that's not to downplay Torop because I think if he could have maybe addressed the defensive issues and out of possession and married that with what he was offering on the ball, then maybe you start to get on the path that Clement is now on. But there's a pragmatism at heart, but within that, he wants to entertain. Clearly, he wants his team to go forward. He wants them to keep going forward. We've talked about it already on this podcast. I don't want 3. I want 4. I want 5. And in 2 cup ties at home, in front of a lot of new or relatively new supporters, impressionable young supporters, he served up his team 8 goals, plenty of thrills, plenty of spills, and that I think does. I mean, that's a big shout to say he's probably the first unifying. I mean, you're going back to Farker, are you? In terms of the
yeah, I think so.
Next unifying,
very early, but
I
in terms of that presence,
yeah, I personally I think it's a bit too early because if the results head south again, and I'm not for 1 minute forecasting that is going to be the case, but there might be circumstances out of his control over this run, then that optimism may just dip a touch. But yeah, you can't argue how he carries himself. I think for me, it's the fact that he is very, very clearly in charge. There's no debate. There's no getting led around by any other constituency at that football club. He is the all-seeing, power for me. Obviously, in tandem with whether it be Ben Napper and the executive there, or higher above them with Mark Attanasio and Norfolk Holdings. But it's evident that, be it recruitment in the last window, be it certainly now in terms of what he's done with that squad of players, and how off the back of that he is connected. And he said very early on, the synergy was the word he wanted to use. He wanted to get that synergy again, that a support base came and supported. And I can't think what game it was. I don't think it was Blackburn, but one of these recent Carrow games where, actually it might have been Blackburn, yeah, where the game was in the balance. The fan base could have easily sort of maybe just sat there and kind of hoped for something, but no, they sensed the players needed something. I think it was Blackburn. They sensed the players needed something. The decibel levels rose. They gave that energy to the playing staff. That only really comes if a group of fans are now seeing and believing that under this head coach and this group of players that they're onto something. And if you, it's like anything, and one thing the Farker period did teach us, certainly that first title winning season, is that if you get a group of players who are giving their all and are producing results and doing it with a brand of football that is very pleasing and aesthetically pleasing on the eye, you can be sure that this fan base will row in behind that, will want more of that, will want optimism, will want excitement, and then that can and for me, you even go further back to another cycle, the Lambert era. Once you get that with this football club, Alex Neil, maybe that's glorious first 6 months in charge, culminating with Wembley. It can be quite unstoppable. And albeit we're still in an early phase of that cycle under Clement, but 8 wins in 10, does cut to the heart of the matter that he is performing on the pitch, and as a result, quite clearly, there's a fan base who like what they see and believe that maybe he is the real deal. But for me, I just keep coming back to the injuries that are stacking up now. It's as good as he is, clearly as good as he is, and his career path to this point tells you he's managed some big clubs. He's competed at a decent level in Europe. He is an operator who knows what it takes. That there may be circumstances out of his control over this shorter period, but in the mid to longer term, I think the outlook is very bright. And another full house today would tell me that there's a growing number of fans who maybe were a little bit disenchanted, maybe were thinking, well, I'm not really enjoying my trips to Carrow Road. Maybe there's something else I could be doing. I don't get that sense now. I think that's turned again. And it's very much, can't wait for the next time I'm at Carrow Road, can't wait for the next time I can see this team under this head coach go out and try and entertain and try and win games of football and bring some enjoyment to a fan base who had precious little of that this season, that's for sure.
Yep, long may it continue. Part 2, we're going to get under the bonnet of some of those individual performances today as well, and look ahead to what will be that 5th round draw on Monday night. See you in a second. Welcome back to the PinkUn.com Norwich City podcast, reflecting on their FA Cup 4th round win over West Brom to cap off what has been a perfect week of wins against Blackburn, against Oxford, and obviously this afternoon in NR1. Connor and Paddy still with you. And I guess for the final portion of the show, it makes sense to kind of speak about some of those individuals today that impressed. I think I'll probably start with Paris Maghoma, who first start, we saw glimpses, I think, of that kind of ability to glide and whatnot. But that first half, the word I come back to is fun. He was fun to watch. He looked quite fun in terms of other players to combine with. There were flicks, there were tricks, there were some excellent passes, and there was a headed goal which seemed to please Philippe Clement the most post-game.
Yes, by all accounts, that was one of, off the back of his cameo at Oxford, where Clement had said he liked a lot of what he saw, but there was some areas, that he felt needed a bit of work. He didn't explicitly reference what they were, but apparently he has been into him about more headed presence in the box, to which I think Maghoma post-match today has said, well, you've set me that homework and I've passed that, so what have you got for me next week? So we'll see what he has got. I'm sure he will have plenty for him. But there was, like all good players, I think he seems to have time on the ball and his close control, because it doesn't feel like he's moving particularly Mo Toure levels of pace, but there was, the goal that he opened the scoring with was actually the result of a corner won by him picking up the ball from Kellen Fisher on the half turn, and he's got about 2 or 3 West Brom players trying to catch up with him, and they can't quite get to him, and then eventually checks onto his right, shot deflected over, and then the rest is the opening goal from the corner. So yeah, come on. The point I was putting to him on Friday was that he feels a very different type of profile to what he already has in the 10 role, and Clement sort of felt that, all the options he's got there, and he listed 5 or 6 in the end, number 10 options, not all of them, maybe their first choice position, because he threw Chris Gordon in there and Schwartau, who I haven't really seen as an out-and-out 10 right now over a longer period of games, but nevertheless, he bracketed him in the 10, but it does feel that this guy has a little bit more to his game, I think, and he's been clearly playing that position, hasn't he? I think for Brentford on occasion when he got opportunities in the Premier League, but maybe more so Bolton. That area of the pitch, he feels comfortable. He feels like he knows what he's doing when he picks those balls up in that area of the pitch. And Clement did make the point though, but maybe some of the spaces were because of the work of Chris Gordon and how he was able to occupy players and pull players out of position, because he's got those qualities to sort of never give centre-backs a moment's peace, and that is true. So, you maybe have to broaden out a dissection of Mahoma's game with how it worked in tandem with Chris Gordon, certainly for the first 45, 50 minutes. But, yeah, there was a lot to unpack in that performance, not just the goal, but his ability to, through those central areas, where it can be quite congested, but commit defenders, bring others into play. And I like his... he's clearly peripheral vision. He sees pictures. He can switch left or right. He's got that balletic movement. He's very well balanced as a runner, and as I say, close control. So, yeah, really interesting signing. And I guess with him, it's just the fitness levels now, because he's had thick end of 6 months off with 2 hamstring injuries. So if they can get into a position where physically he's able to contribute, then I doubt you would see too many dispute that technically he looks like he has more than enough to impact games at this level, and you would hope that performance today will give him even more. He doesn't strike me as a player who lacks confidence, really, any of the interviews we've seen him. But nevertheless, you come into a new club in his position, and you've had a little bit of a delayed start because of the fitness related situation. What you want to do when you do get opportunities is grasp them, and I think he did that today. So it's a real good moving forward now. What his rest of the season looks like, how much of an impact, or is he one that you'll continue to see maybe in the side, off the bench, more so than starting over the Championship season to come, and then it's maybe next season where he takes that step forward. Let's hope it's actually that no, he can become a bit more of a frontline option, and that maybe him and Slimani can spark each other and to keep driving that level forward. Because for me, they're the two standouts, I think, in the here and now. If you're looking at the 10 role and who's best equipped to offer what Norwich need in that area of the pitch, I think it's probably those two. And a hit in the here and now. And as I say, I don't think it was a coincidence when Slimani got himself on the pitch, having watched Maghoma paint those pretty pictures in the first 45, 50 minutes. He was very keen to maybe just remind Clement of what he has produced really since the turn of the year, which is real productivity, and both the second and the third goal. I think he's got himself a couple of assists to go with, a growing body of goal contributions. So, yeah, if you're Clement, you want that from back to front, don't you? You want every area of your pitch to have real dilemmas week to week, and you would say there are areas of the team where that is more the case than other parts of the team, but it's shaping up, if Maghoma continues in this vein, that number 10 role, which has felt like a problem position for the first part of the season anyway, and that was clearly a focus in terms of going into the window just gone to address that. So it's great that we're coming out of that period, and Slimani has been almost reborn again under Clement, and now they've added in Maghoma on the evidence of, albeit again a small sample, bit like Toure, but nevertheless some really encouraging signs of a player of some promise in a position of the field which my mind goes back, and again I'm not trying to seek to draw any parallels with Buendia right now, but you go back to those two Farker teams, and that area of the pitch was probably where Norwich stood apart from a lot of the other teams they were vying with in those periods, is that they had in players like a Buendia, Steeperman in the first championship season, different profiles, but nevertheless really effective operators in the 10 role who could make the difference, who could either score a goal or provide bagfuls of assists. And I think if you have those type of players, that's for me what separates you in a championship sort of grind that can be quite attritional. But if you've got those really difference makers in terms of those key positions of the pitch, they make other players around them better, and they just elevate what you can offer in terms of the attacking areas of the pitch. And for me, very good start, but that's all it is. And Clement, I'm sure, will be very keen now for him to drive onwards and upwards. And if he does that, then a little bit like it feels with Toure at the moment, what they've paid Brentford to get him in initially, that might look like a very astute piece of business.
Yeah, I think it will pretty quickly. I think what I liked about him is often you can get 10s who are kind of ball players or ball carriers, and you can get almost, if you're a ball player, you're not necessarily a ball carrier, and vice versa. Kind of felt like he was both today in terms of the way that he moves and the way he runs with the ball is very rhythmic. And I always think it's a sign that you said space, but which is absolutely true. And I think also when you get players that just seem to glide and seem to play the game at their own pace and set the pace, I guess, for opponents as well. And you referenced that shot he got away, but continuously in tight areas, the way he moved the ball, manipulated the ball, the passes that he found, the way he got Norwich up the pitch was all really encouraging, and did it in a very artistic, creative way. Strikes me probably as different to maybe Slimani in the sense that I think he probably is capable of conjuring something from nothing. You could argue Slimani did that for the second goal, admittedly, but I think Slimani's probably more effective kind of as a wider attacking machine. I would say it feels like Maghoma, I think you could get him to pluck something out of nowhere really, and maybe that spontaneity in the way that he plays is the exciting aspect with him. But and you kind of set this up really, that where I was going with it, that 10 battle now feels really intriguing. As you said, it's been a problem position. They felt like they didn't really have anyone natural in that sort of the other side of Christmas. Suddenly Slimani has emerged there, and two really different assists today, but good. He could have punched the ball through to Liam Gibbs, just waited that extra second for the fullback to get back in position. That opened up the channel for Crisene to strike, and obviously the spontaneity and the ingenuity of the second goal to produce what he produced, to make what was really not even a half opportunity into a near certain goal was magical really. Different occasions I think probably suit both of those players, but now to be in a position as they are with Toure and Chris scoring, as they are with Ahmed, as they are with probably their centre backs as well, their central midfielders with Sam Field into the mix, there are some areas of this squad now that does feel like there's really good competition within it. Absolutely, and stating the obvious, but to have that degree of competition internally is, I'm sure, what is driving the performance levels. It's the old cliche, if you feel that your position's under threat, then you would imagine that just extracts whatever percentage required to continue to try and perform as close to your optimum as you can. And McConville is a fantastic example of that now.
put him in my pointers tonight. He's captained the team, and Clement obviously downplayed the armband element, said he could have given it to Harry Darling, but nevertheless, it is another signal that he is now, given his first league start of the season wasn't until November the 1st, and he didn't feature in Clement's first game at Birmingham, if you recall, but ever since, he is now the focal point, and I'm sure that is a young player who's waited for his chance. He's got his chance now, and he knows if he regresses, then Cordoba, Darling primarily, maybe even Medic, when fit and available, are there waiting in the wings. And he is, for me, probably the greatest beneficiary of Clement's arrival, because I don't see any way that we would be talking about Rory McConville as pretty much the first name in that defensive unit, certainly in the centre-back situation, if Clement isn't in the building. And if anything, you probably would have been seeing him heading out somewhere for a lower league loan in January, I would imagine, if he hadn't kicked the ball much in the first part of the season. So it just shows you. It really just does show that that opportunity, but you have to be good enough to take it. And then if there is that competition inside the group, that you have to be able to maintain it. Otherwise, I don't think there will be any benevolence shown by this head coach. That is very much the case. And I thought Slimani, if I'm being honest, I thought, maybe because it was a very almost impossibly high bar to maintain what he did in that fantastic burst around Wrexham and West Brom away in the league, and one or two other games as well, where it was like, it almost felt every time he stepped on the pitch there'd be a goal or there'd be an assist, and Ahmed obviously was his twin in that endeavour. But I felt in the last 2 or 3 games he hasn't quite affected the game enough. Almost has just played within himself, and hasn't really offered that real clinical intent. But whether it's a coincidence or whether it is, Maghoma coming in now in the last game and a half. But that cameo in the second half was very much, back to Slimani of real impactful, linking the play, bringing others into play, as he did for Kruzeni and as he did brilliantly for Toure's goal as well. Just that juggling act and the presence and the execution to just effectively put that ball across the 6-yard box and turn it into, in the end, a very simple goal. But it's owed everything to a player in Slimani who has that ability. And again, another one, and there feels to be very, very many of these now under Clement's tenure, who, whatever it is, whatever the key was to unlock something in that player, Clement has found it and has done that, and has gained the trust of that player, and that player in turn has responded. And everywhere you look in that squad, there are very, very many now case studies that Clement's impact has transformed a lot of their careers so far, albeit still 3 months in. But nevertheless, we're talking about Slimani now as a regular game-changing option starter, and I don't think at any point in his previous Carrow Road career that has been the case necessarily. McConville, now Maghoma, new player, Toure, new player, and on and on. So, it's a good signal, but yeah, you just fear that, particularly if the injuries continue on the path they're on, that may check this momentum. And I still feel, for me, I know we're talking around a cup win today, but going back now to to Birmingham next week in the championship, I still think it's a bridge too far to be really talking them up as top 6 contenders. But
do you want some maths around that?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I gave this to you. I know we're talking FA Cup today, but what is it? Is it 14 games left? I think. So if Norwich win 10 of those, that's essentially what they will need to get just shy of 70. So that probably is a low estimation for what they're going to need to get in there. You're talking probably 11, 12 wins from 14. Yeah. Feels tough, that.
Well, with the injuries, yeah. I think that is
even without the injuries, probably.
Yeah, tough. Exactly. So you overlay that challenge, and I just think it's probably unrealistic. But nevertheless, top 10 for me nailed on. Yeah, if they continue on this path, and we've talked about it in the last few days, if it's an end to a season that is front-footed and is onwards and upwards, then boy, do they bounce into another summer where you hope they get more right than wrong in terms of recruitment, and then it's all systems go, I think, for the start of next season.
Yeah, I would agree. I want to. I mean, you mentioned McConville there. And as you said, what a story that has been for a lad who could not get a kick. And I think we were all kind of wondering why that was on the evidence when he played. He hadn't played that much, and I remember looking in around Christmas, and Clement had given him 70% of his starts at Norwich at that stage. It would be even more now as a percentage. You kind of wonder why he wasn't playing games of football before, because I think as a centre back, he's got that combination probably of having those old school elements. Loves a block, loves a challenge, gets through a lot of work defensively, and that's why I think his partnership with Cordoba in the league works well so nicely, because where Cordoba brings that pace, he probably brings that physicality and that kind of robust defensiveness. Probably needs to see a little bit more of him on the ball. I think that's probably the element where his game really needs to be kicked on. But in terms of someone who, at such a young age, was he still 20, 21?
21.
Consistency and the performance level that he is reaching has been pretty remarkable now since Clement has come in. That's a 3-month period. So we're not talking about a good uplift in form. We're talking about a really, really good, consistent spell of performances to play the minutes that he has as well. I think he's played basically every minute in every competition since that game at Birmingham. It's remarkable, really. And I said to you pre-game, and I was thinking about this earlier, we're not anywhere near this time of year, but your head does begin to wander to kind of player of the season stuff. And obviously, as we said, strikers get headlines. I'm sure Maghoma will be there, but by the time we get to May, he'll have been 2 months without kicking a ball. I mean, Rory McConville, if he continues in this vein, there's a lot of ifs in this conversation, but he's going to be one of those people that is pushed forward for that type of accolade, which I think is pretty remarkable, all told. So, yeah, he for me has been a real success story and a real positive champion, I think, of probably what they want to do here as well, in terms of taking young players who are unfavoured or maybe they see value in, polishing them, getting them on the pitch, exposing them to high-level coaching and opportunities, and then getting them to a point where they look really good and they become valuable, and you sell them or you benefit from having them on the pitch. And like you said, the armband, I know Clement was trying to say it's not really much to read into that, but the fact is he didn't give it to Harry Darling. He didn't give it to Sam Field. There's a reason why he did that, and I think it is about what Rory McConville has done, and probably his presence. And on top of all of that, is a really nice lad, down to earth, good to speak to, and has a real desire, I think, to succeed at Norwich. And hopefully in years to come, it's going to be one that we look at as a very rare example of Brighton getting wrong in terms of a young player and letting him go, albeit identifying him in the first place. Let's look ahead to the fifth round then, Paddy. Draw Monday night, so you may well be watching or listening to this after that, and who knows, we may be off to some godforsaken part of the country away from home.
Do you want to put a name to that?
Wrexham away, somewhere not in terms of glamour, but in terms of distance and maybe fellow league. We've already been there. Southampton would be another one. They got through. Exactly. You want something interesting. If not, then you want it at home.
Yes.
Fifth round, there are a game from the quarterfinals. My head goes back to that COVID season where we were all robbed of that Manchester United quarterfinal at Carrow Road. What an atmosphere that would have been that night. In the end, that was one of their better games actually in Project Restart. They still lost it. I think it was the only goal they scored in that period. I know Emi Buendia scored at Watford, didn't he? But their only Carrow Road goal. There's some excitement about that. What sort of draw do you want to see Norwich get? Because I think there's lots of angles you can take this. You can just progress through it. You can say, well, it'd be really interesting if they could have a home tie against one of those lower Premier League sort of teams, and how close can they get to them. There's obviously some will want the attraction of a Man City or a Chelsea or an Arsenal. Where's
the attraction about playing Man City?
Well, just the circus that comes with that.
Well, no. Wembley would be good to play Man City. Yeah, not in the fifth round, but winnable. Got to be winnable now. I think, joking aside, I think you get through this one. It is 2 games to Wembley, isn't it? Because the semi-finals are played there. So what an incentive that would be if you've got, and probably any team left in the competition would feel that there's teams, their chances are better of progressing, and Norwich no different. So you get a favourable draw. You still have to then do the business, as it were. But I think now it would be a bit of a kicker for me if you pulled Arsenal are still in, aren't they? An Arsenal or a Man City.
Yeah, they play Wigan, I think. Or I think that might be the Monday night game.
Yeah, so stranger things and all that. But I think that the probability of them getting past any of the absolute top end of the Premier League are pretty slim. But I remember.
Would need to be at home, wouldn't it?
Well,
and then even then you need a lot to go in your favour.
Yeah. So, in terms of prolonging this run, which is very much where Clement's mindset is at, then I'm sure you'd look for a little more of a favourable draw in that sense. But it was interesting. I asked him about that earlier tonight, and he said he'd sort of given up predicting because he's done that previously, and it's not gone well at previous clubs. I mean, he sort of dropped in about Europa League and what have you, and these other competitions. But I would get the sense though, if they did get a juicy Premier League team, he might actually look at that and think, well, okay, that's a good marker for us now.
That's all I mean. Yeah, at Carrow Road, if you could get a Fulham or a Wolves, it'd be a really good test of well, how good are they? How much progress have they actually made?
So I think on one level, I think he would relish that opportunity to almost benchmark where we are in the here and now, given that is longer term. Said it a few times on this podcast today, where he sees this club ending up and him being the architect of that rise. So, but no, I think in the interests of trying to tilt the scales a little bit in Norwich's favour, I think ideally a home tie, ideally a winnable tie in terms of pyramid opponent, and then you're in the quarter-final, and then it's really game on, isn't it then?
It is, yeah. Oh, I'd love that Carrow quarter-final. It's not something that happens very often in the history of Norwich. I think before that Manchester United one, you have to go back to the 90s. So they don't come about often. So, yeah, let's see who they get first. And, of course, whoever they get, they have then got to beat. And then we can maybe look ahead to that. But it's an exciting incentive to add alongside what has been a real good surge in the league. And if it isn't going to be the playoffs, then who knows? Maybe the FA Cup run is the part that brings the excitement. Just finally then, Pads, I mean, we've been doing these pods, just me and you, for a couple of weeks. The good people will be pleased to know it won't just be me and you next week.
The pain is over. The pain is over. We won't have any more plastic inflatables falling on our heads, hopefully, because there'll be more entertainment because there'll be three of us. So maybe you tell the good people.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has announced this now, so I'm sure lots of people will be aware. But if you're not, then as of Tuesday is his return. We're delighted to welcome Adam Harvey back, which will be excellent. I'm sure you've probably missed his dulcet tones on the podcast and providing the insight that he does. We've certainly missed having him, so it's going to be really good to have him back and to be back up to our full squad after a little period, because we've been, I mean, Slimani did it well, but we've been doing some juggling of our own in recent weeks.
Not quite as with the same dexterity as Slimani for that third goal, to be fair, but we tried to keep the balls in play.
We have, and I think hopefully by and large we've done that. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting to welcome him back, and what a time for him to come back in terms of now.
Glory hunter, isn't he? That's all that is. It's all win-win-win. If I'll have a piece of that.
Yeah.
And if conversely they start to get tanked the other way, then we all know to blame, don't we? But
well, it's not me and you now, because they've won a lot of games.
No, we're definitely not the jinx. No, so but it will be good. Yeah, and he's a bit like yourself, at heart he's a Norwich fan, and I'm sure he's enjoying the ride as much as we all are at the moment. So long may it continue. Yeah.
Absolutely right. That is far too much of your Valentine's Day evening and ours, quite frankly, that we've taken there. But
what restaurant are you taking me to now?
What one would you like to go to? What would be your choice?
Romantic one, obviously. We can sort of watch the highlights of the game or whatever over fish and chips. I don't know, anything. Whatever.
Yeah, we've done a few of those.
You've left it a bit late if you're only booking the hotel now.
Yeah,
that's honestly it's half 8 on a Saturday night.
Yeah. Be a Holiday Inn or something pretty basic at this stage.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll sort that out off camera and off mic. Thank you very much for joining us. PinkUn.com, the place to go for all of the reaction analysis to this game, building ahead as well to that championship, really enticing championship Carrow Road doubleheader next week, Birmingham and then Sheffield Wednesday to come, and hopefully continue to look up not just the championship table but also through the FA Cup rounds. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. they've then got to beat, and then we can maybe look ahead to that. But it's an exciting incentive to add alongside what has been a real good surge in the league. And if it isn't going to be the playoffs, then who knows? Maybe the FA Cup run is the part that brings the excitement. Just finally then, Pads, I mean, we've been doing these pods, just me and you, for a couple of weeks. The good people will be pleased to know it won't just be me and you next week.
The pain is over. The pain is over. We won't have any more plastic inflatables falling on our heads, hopefully, because there'll be more entertainment because there'll be 3 of us. So maybe you tell the good people.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has announced this now, so I'm sure lots of people will be aware. But if you're not, then as of Tuesday is his return. We're delighted to welcome Adam Harvey back, which will be excellent. I'm sure you've probably missed his dulcet tones on the podcast and providing the insight that he does. We certainly missed having him, so it's going to be really good to have him back and to be back up to our full squad after a little period, because we've been, I mean, Slimani did it well, but we've been doing some juggling of our own in recent weeks.
Not quite as with the same dexterity as Slimani for that third goal, to be fair, but we've tried to keep the balls in play.
We have, and I think hopefully by and large we've done that. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting to welcome him back, and what a time for him to come back in terms of now.
He's just a glory hunter, isn't he? That's all that is. It's all win-win-win. He thought, I'll have a piece of that.
Yeah.
And if conversely they start to tank the other way, then we all know to blame, don't we? But
it's not me and you now, because I've won a lot of games.
No, we're definitely not the jinx. No, so but it will be good. Yeah, and he's a bit like yourself, at heart he's a Norwich fan, and I'm sure he's enjoying the ride as much as we all are at the moment. So long may it continue. Yeah.
Absolutely right. That is far too much of your Valentine's Day evening and ours, quite frankly, that we've taken there. But made
what restaurant are you taking me to now?
What one would you like to go to? What would be your choice?
Romantic one, obviously. We can sort of watch the highlights of the game or whatever over a fish and chips. I don't know, anything. Whatever.
Well, yeah, we've done a few of those.
You've left it a bit late if you're only booking the hotel now.
Yeah,
what time is it? It's 8:30 on a Saturday night.
Yeah. Be a Holiday Inn or something pretty basic at this stage.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll sort that out off camera and off mic. Thank you very much for joining us. PinkUn.com, the place to go for all of the reaction analysis to this game, building ahead as well to that championship, really enticing championship Carrow Road doubleheader next week, Birmingham and then Sheffield Wednesday to come, and hopefully continue to look up not just the championship table but also through the FA Cup rounds. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Good man, kept that quite tight in the end.
Well done, mate, like that.